If you're waiting to feel ready before you start, you may be waiting for a feeling that is never coming. Starting that new project, new job, new YouTube channel, or new goal is a little like entering a maze. You do not get the map first. You find the path by moving forward, failing, and going a different direction. And I've been there too. I used to have so many ideas and was always terrified of starting something new because I didn't feel ready. But everything changed when I stopped waiting for that feeling and just started anyway. So if you've been putting things off until you feel ready, these 5 tips are for you. First, let's start with how readiness is actually a trap. Now, most people assume progress happens in order. First, I learn enough, then I make a plan, then once I finally feel ready, I begin. This is not how it works. Instead, here's how it goes. You plan and learn and do all at the same time. When the Wright brothers decided to pursue powered flight, they were not the people anyone would have picked. They were bicycle mechanics, not elite engineers. They did not have the prestige, funding, or backing that Samuel Langley had. Langley had all of that, and his aircraft crashed into the Potomac on both manned launch attempts in 1903. The Wright brothers just kept experimenting, adjusting, and trying again, and they became the first people to pull off sustained, controlled, powered flight. Now, the reason this matters is that a lot of what you are hesitating over is actually experimental by nature. Writing the book is experimental. Starting the business is experimental. Making something new, like an aircraft in 1903, experimental, which means success prediction is actually impossible, or at least far less reliable than people want it to be. So instead of trying to predict the future, you need to make decisions that acknowledge uncertainty. There's a popular framework for this called effectuation theory, and 2 parts of it matter here. The first is called affordable loss. Commit only what you can afford to lose instead of betting everything on a prediction. But the part that really matters is what's called pilot in the plane. So the future is not something you predict correctly from a distance. It is something you shape through action. You pilot it as you build the plane. Because if you keep waiting until you can fully predict the outcome, you stay stuck outside the very thing that would have taught you what to do next. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, I just need a better plan first or a degree first, do not ask how to map the whole maze. Ask, what is the one step where I can plan, learn, and do at the same time? What is one version I can try without betting more than I can afford to lose? Write the first paragraph, test the first offer, have the first conversation. Because the goal is not to predict the future perfectly. You can't. The goal is to start shaping it. Number 2, you don't need to search for a better idea. You need to start with what you've got. A lot of people stay stuck because they think they need a better idea or a unique idea before they can begin, and that is not true. You start with who you are, what you know, and who you know. Now, in entrepreneurship, there is a phrase for this. It's called bird in hand. It just means you begin with the resources already in front of you instead of waiting for the perfect opportunity. If you're an artist, you paint the thing that's closest to you, the bowl of fruit. Paint the room you are in. You do not have to imagine the Eiffel Tower from your house in Michigan. You can look at what is already around you and find the art there by starting. Now, Jimmy John's is one of my favorite examples of this. The founder, Jimmy John, had no restaurant experience and basically no idea what to do with his life. So he was gonna start a hot dog stand, but he couldn't afford the equipment for it. So he started a sandwich shop, which had cheaper equipment that basically he already had, and he had just 4 sandwiches on the menu. Today, it's a $2 billion franchise. Airbnb is similar. Airbnb did not begin as, of course, some perfect grand plan. It started with 3 air mattresses in an apartment in San Francisco during a sold-out conference. Now, in both cases, the move was the same. Stop waiting around for the big idea and use what you already have. This matters because a lot of people get trapped looking for the big idea when they should be using the idea, the skill, or the resource already in front of them. You do not have to come up with something brand new before you are allowed to begin. So if you're circling 10 different ideas right now, stop and ask 3 simpler questions instead. What do I already know? Who do I already know? What do I already have? The constraints can actually make you far more creative. So write a novel about your job. Improve on the recipe you already know. Start with the version you can actually deliver for today, because the goal here is not to wait for a better starting point. The goal is to start with what you've already got. Number 3, setting a mini deadline can get you moving faster than feeling ready ever will. So if you are standing at the start of a maze, give yourself a deadline to finish it. Better yet, get someone else to impose a deadline for you to finish that maze. This matters more than people think, because a deadline does something that internal motivation often cannot. It forces the work out of your head and into the real world. It forces you to start walking the maze, which gets you closer to your end goal every minute you walk. The reason this works is that vague goals are easy to postpone. I'll start soon is not a real plan. It avoids accountability. I need this draft done by next Thursday because someone is expecting it. That is. Deadlines turn intention into consequence, and there is actual research behind this. So the researcher Dan Ariely and his colleagues found that deadlines are better than no deadlines for performance, and deadlines from external sources are even better than self-imposed ones. And now that tracks with real life too. The deadline I invent for myself is the easiest one to move. The deadline tied to an agent, a publisher, a class, a writing group, or another person gets a lot harder to ignore. So sometimes what gets you moving is not more confidence or more clarity. It is making time real. It is putting your work in a situation where there is now a date, an expectation, and a consequence if you do nothing. So give yourself a mini deadline today. Not, I should really get to this sometime. Make it real. By Friday, I will send the draft. By tomorrow night, I will finish the first page. By the end of the week, I will show someone a version of this. And if you know that you're the kind of person who will keep, moving your own finish line, build in outside pressure on purpose. Join the class, tell the client, book the meeting, get the thing onto a calendar, because once a deadline becomes real, starting gets a lot easier. Next is the 4th tip. Getting started is a lot easier when you embrace the idea of imperfection. Stop trying to make everything perfect, because if you are sabotaging yourself. Here's what I mean. What makes starting something new feel so hard is that you are comparing yourself to the finished version in your head. The finished book, the finished business, the finished product. That brutal standard of perfection makes it almost impossible to begin. So instead of trying to get it perfect the first time, prototype it. Do a chapter or 2, make a rough draft. Build the first version while you are still learning. Point is to make multiple imperfect versions, because that is how you build confidence and start seeing what actually works. Remember that early work is supposed to be rough, even in the biggest industries. The co-founder of Pixar put it bluntly and said, early on, all of our movies suck. That's not failure, that means it's part of the process. When you let something be bad at first, you give yourself real permission, something real to improve, instead of just like an imaginary standard in your head. And if you're still frozen, change your state, get moving, go for a walk. Physical movement helps interrupt rumination, and walking anywhere has been shown to increase creative thinking. Then take the whole thing down a notch. Stop putting the thing you want to do up on a pedestal. And lastly, laugh. Seriously, a lighter mood makes it easier to create. So watch something funny, loosen your grip on the outcome, and make it easier to begin. People often make the mistake of forcing perfection in their first attempt, but that is just way too much weight to carry. They act like the first version has to prove that they are talented, original, qualified, ready. But that is an impossible standard. You know it is, and it makes you feel stuck and like a failure. So if you are stuck, make the first version smaller, rougher, easier to begin. Write 1 paragraph, sketch 1 draft, build 1 rough prototype. If that still feels too heavy, then break the task down even further. And if you're still frozen, change your state. That means move your body, lighten the mood. Watch something funny if you need to. Do not ask whether the first version is good enough. Learn to embrace imperfection now and get really comfortable with it. You can make it perfect later. Here's my 5th and final tip. Once you get started, the secret to keep moving forward is to test, adapt, and test again. One of the strongest ways to get started with your new goal or a big task is to think like a scientist. Look at the task or problem in front of you and just ask yourself, what's my theory here? What's my hypothesis? How can I test this? How can I measure it? Because when you take that approach, failure stops meaning, oh, I'm bad at this, and starts meaning, hey, I learned something useful. A scientist is not failing. A scientist is testing, getting a result, learning from it, moving on. That's how WD-40 got its name. It was the 40th iteration. The first 39 were not wasted. They all led somewhere. Now, Slack is another great example. It was not supposed to become Slack. The business started as an online game. The game failed, but the communication tool that the team had built while working on the game did not fail. They tested an idea, the game, it failed, and they pivoted to an idea that worked better. And then they made that even better. Better UX, friendlier UI, and now Slack is one of the most popular work communication tools. This matters because starting is not a one-time event. Every new level brings a new beginning, and there's an advantage to being new too. When you do not know every rule yet, you are often more willing to try fresher ideas and ask the kinds of questions that drive innovation. Why does it have to work that way? What if we combine these two things? Why not just try this? Those are outsider questions, and they sound naive right up until they lead to something better. Now that is part of the outsider advantage. So the deeper skill here is not just starting once, it's getting good at being new. It is learning how to test, learn, adapt, and test, or begin again before doubt hardens into delay and into no movement at all. Being new is a skill that carries the world's most successful, resilient people through life. So treat your next move, goal, or problem like a scientific experiment. Write down your hypothesis, decide how you will test it, decide what result you're looking for, and decide in advance what you will do if the first version does not work. Then, when you feel yourself stalling out because you do not know enough yet, use outsider questions. Why does it have to work that way? What if I combine these two things? Why not just try this? Those questions can get you moving again. Whatever you are afraid to begin now is not the last new thing you will ever have to do. It's practice. You are building the skill of beginning again. And the stronger you get at that, the less power not ready yet has over you. That's how to start before you feel ready. And if you want to learn how to think more clearly once you do start, check out this next video.